Okey, selamat pagi dan salam sejahtera kepada semua murid. Terima kasih sekali lagi saya ucapkan kerana masih bersama kami dalam pembelajaran maya ini yang dianjurkan oleh Sektor Pembelajaran Pendidikan Daerah Bangsar Pudu. Hari ini bersama kita adalah Cikgu Kwan dari Victoria Institution. Hi teacher.
Hi.
Okay, teacher, you can introduce yourself and then you can continue the
Alright,
lesson.
sure.
Thank
Okay,
you.
good morning, students. Thank you, Encik Subramaniam. Okay, good morning, students. Alright, I'm Dr. Kwan from Victoria Institution, Kuala Lumpur. I'm your online biology teacher today, so hope all of you are ready for the lessons. Okay, before we start, please get ready your textbook, reference book, and stationeries for note-taking, so that you jot down all the important points for your revision later. Okay, today what are we going to study is about human immunity in human. All right, before I proceed, please answer a few questions. Okay, to answer the questions, please put down your answer at the comment area, right? You can put down your comment as your answer. All right, the first question that I'm going to ask you is, how do we get sick? What do you think? How can we get sick? Okay, yes, when we get sick, okay, we will get it from the pathogens that enters into our bodies. All right, and how do you get actually yourself overcome or recovered from the sickness? Yes, you will get sick when the pathogens invade our immunity. Very good. And when you know that you get sick, all right, what will you do to recover yourself from the sickness? Anyone would like to try? Yes. One of the options, we go to the doctor, we get the medicine. Beside that, if you don't go to the doctor, we will normally stay at home and we will get ourselves recovered from that slowly, isn't it? All right, so that means we may not be able to get the medicines. We may not get the medicines, but we stay at home and we sleep, we drink more water, and then we rest ourselves and we get our body to recover by itself. All right, and how does a person get sick? This is similar to the question number 1. It is when we get the pathogens enters into our body and it actually infected our body to get sick. Okay, so the next question is, what helped us to recover from this sickness? Why we want to take medicines? Why we want to take rest? Yes, it is our immunity defense. We have an immunity system in our body so that it will help us to recover from our sickness. So what is the functions of immunity? What is the function of immunity? Okay, immunity is the body ability to fight infections caused by antigen. Okay, it actually protects us from getting sick. All right, when the antigens entered into our body, it may cause infections. So if we were infected, we may have a few symptoms. So just like what is shown here, we will have fever, we will have cough, okay? We may actually having difficulties in breathing as well. So these are some of the symptoms that we are actually infected by antigens. Okay, it is very similar to what very common now that we are very precautious about the COVID-19. So when we have fever, we cough, or we are having difficulties in breathing, okay, it may be a sign that we are actually infected by viruses or antigens. All right, so our immune system will respond to all these infections. There are a few types of immunity. Okay, we could classify immunity into a few categories based on how our immune system responds to the infections. And this is what we are going to study today. All right, in today's lessons, we are going to pursue the following learning standards. First of all, we need to know about the how to communicate about the types of immunity, which means after these lessons, all students will be able to describe the types of immunity that we have. Okay, there are 4 types of it. So you need to know how to discuss it and how to briefly describe the types of immunity. Then we will continue to compare and contrast between passive immunity and active immunity. So in this sense, we are going to actually write down the similarities as well as the differences between the passive and the active immunity. Then we will continue to study how to describe the health issues related to AIDS, which is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. All right, first of all, we have to know how the antigen actually could enter into our body. What do you think? How antigens will be able to enter to our body? Yes, could you please list down the ways the antigens could enter into our body? Yes, through wounds. When our skin has some cuts, it exposes the skin and then the bacteria may go into our body from the wounds. Some more, yeah, luka, yes. Saliva, taking medicine. All right. It may go through our mouth, yes, yet when we eat, when we talk, actually the virus will be able to go through our mouth and enters into our body. So there are a few ways the microbes would be able to go into our body. The antigens could enter into our body. So it could be through the nose, it could be through the mouth, it could be through the skin. Okay, so it can become in the form of food from our drinks, yes, or even when we talk or and we are breathing, we will be all the antigens would be able to enter into our body. And after the antigens gets into our body will react to it. Okay, so how our body reacts to the antigen? What do you think? How will our body react to the antigens? as the antigens gets into our body, it will actually infect our body and causes having fever, cough, difficult in breathing. So our body will react to all these things. So how our body will react to it? Okay, there are two ways. It's either our body will produce our antigens, okay, the antibodies. Yes, very good. They will produce antibodies. Our body will produce antibodies to overcome the infection. Or our body needs to get antibiotic to fight back the antigens. That's why simple as that we actually want to get ourselves away from the sickness. Okay, so now we could put the immunity into two major categories, which means in this way, it is active immunity or passive immunity. So active immunity means our body actually produced the antigens to overcome the sickness. Passive immunity means that our body actually gets help from other sources to get the antibiotic, okay, to overcome the sickness. All right. So here are two types of active immunity. First of all, it is the natural active immunity. So in this immunity, our body actually actively producing the antibody to overcome the sickness that we have in a natural way, without any man-made stimulants or whatever it is. Okay, so our body, for example, gets sick from chicken pox. Let's say you suffer from chicken pox by exposing yourself to whom that had chicken pox and you get sick. Then your body will produce antibody to overcome or recover from the sickness. So you actually naturally get sick and naturally actively producing the antibody to overcome the sickness. So this is called natural active immunity. Whereby artificial active immunity, you are actually actively producing antibody as well. But now, how you get sick? There is a certain man-made stimulus there, which is you get vaccine. For example, just now we took the example of chicken pox. Now we go for the chicken pox as well. Just now, for natural active immunity, you get the chicken pox virus from a natural way. But now, for artificial active immunity, you get the chicken pox virus through vaccination. Okay, vaccination means you are injecting yourself with vaccine. What is vaccine? Vaccine is the weakened virus or the dead virus, which means it is weakened, it is not so strong. When it injected into your body, then your body will react to it by producing antibody. Okay, so you get sick with the weakened virus, so it is artificial. But you are actively producing the antibody, therefore it is active. So it is artificial active immunity. All right, so for the passive immunity, okay, passive immunity means that you do not produce the antibody. You get it from some other sources. Okay, for natural passive immunity, that means you get from a very natural way without man-made anything. Okay, so the examples of natural passive immunity is breastfeeding. So the baby will acquire the immunity from breastfeeding, where the antibodies from the mother will be transferred to the baby through the breast milk. Okay, so when the baby drink the breast milk, they will get the antibody from the mother. So that's why it is encouraged, okay, to breastfeed the baby so that the babies will acquire the antibody at the earlier age to get much healthier, okay, and not so vulnerable to sickness. Okay, so in this case, the baby did not actually produce the antibody, so it is passive. But the antibody is naturally produced by the mother, so it is a natural passive immunity. Then comes to the fourth one, which is a artificial passive immunity. Okay, so when it comes to artificial passive immunity, the person is also not producing antibody. And the source of getting the antibiotic is from man-made substances. For example, we get anti-serum, okay, or antibiotic, okay. So when you get sick, let's say from any of cough, anything, your flu and so on. So what you need, you go to see the doctor. That's why you get medicines. So the doctors will give you antibiotic and you eat the antibiotics and you recover from the sickness. So where do you get these antibiotics or these anti-serum? It is from other sources. It's not human produced, but we get the anti-serums from other sources. Okay, so for another example, it is anti-tetanus. We inject the anti-tetanus into our body so that we get immune from tetanus. Okay, so in this case, our body does not produce the anti-tetanus ourselves, but we get it from somewhere else. Okay, so this is artificial passive immunity because the tetanus is not produced by naturally. The anti-tetanus is not produced naturally. It is produced by man-made process. Okay, for further information about this, how the antibiotics can be produced and so on, you may actually refer to your textbook. It is in page 206 or 207 for the Form 4 textbook. Okay, now let us look at one question. Okay, please look at this question. Let's say I give you two diagrams here. So these two diagrams actually illustrate the changes in the antibody levels in the blood of individuals X and Y for a specific period of time. So you will see this is the level of immunity. Okay, so now this is the first injection injected into two different individuals. Individual X get injections. This is the level of the antibody in blood. So it shoot up immediately. Injections number 1 to the individual Y, first injection, the antibodies rise slowly and it drops. Okay, so now the questions. So you may actually answer the questions, okay, in the comment box. So the first question, what type of immunity did individual X and individual Y acquire? So what are the immunity that individual X has and what is the immunity that individual Y has? Yes, artificial immunity for which one, X or Y? both are artificial immunity? Yes. Active or passive? Yeah, both are artificial because it gets from some man-made substance, right? We inject something inside. So they are artificial, okay? But what artificials? Artificial active or artificial passive? Very good. REN416. I do not know how to read your name. Okay, you are right. Okay, X is actually the artificial passive immunity, whereby Y is artificial active immunity. Yes. How do we know that? So you can see that the antibody actually shoot up straight away in the first injection for individual X. That means the person is either taking the antiserum or taking the antibiotic. That the body does not produce any more antibodies. So the antibodies doesn't rise anymore because we don't produce anything here. And the antibodies will be consumed and the amount will be decreasing. Whereby for individual Y, when the first injection goes in, the antibody level is actually 0. But the antibodies level is gradually rising because the body is actually producing the antibody slowly. All right. So question number 2. So state the substance injected in individuals X and Y. So what do we inject here and what do we inject here? So what are we injecting to the X and what are we injecting to individual Y? Right, very good. We inject antiserum to the individual X and we are injecting vaccine to the individual Y. Yes, very good, Raja, and also 416. All right, so the third question is, why do individuals X and Y need a second injection? So where is the second injection? Here is the second injection. Here is the second injection. Okay, when the antibodies goes down, get the second jab. When the antibodies go down, it get the second injection. So why do two of them need a second injection? Yes, very good. Very good. So that the immunity will be boosted up. Okay, so we want to boost the immunity to shoot up over the level of immunity. So because when the antibodies are lower than the immunity level, then the person is actually not immune from the sickness. It's only when the antibodies above the level of immunity, then we are actually safe or protected from the disease. Okay, so the second injection is to boost up the immunity to get the antibody over the level of immunity. All right, the fourth question, based on the graph, state two differences in the immunity achieved by the individuals X and Y. What are the two differences between the two? Yes, very good. So immunity X is temporary. Immunity for individual Y is permanent or last longer. Okay. This is one of the difference. Some more? Okay, some more? Anything else that you can see difference between the two? All right. Beside that, is actually you can see that in individual X, the difference is you acquired the immunity immediately. Whereby for individual X, the immunity actually is produced gradually. It slowly get the immunity when you refer to the times taken. So it may take a few weeks for individual Y to get immune from the sickness. But for individual X, once you get the injection, you immediately get the immunity. So this is one of the difference. The time taken for immunity for X is immediate, but for individual Y, the immunity acquired slowly. For individual X, the immunity is temporal or short period of time because it will decrease in a few days, okay, or even quite short the period of time. But for individual Y, the immunity may last longer. It may last for the whole life if the immunity, the antibody level doesn't drop until it dies. Okay, all right. Then we proceed to compare and contrast the passive immunity and active immunity. Okay, just now we actually look at some of the differences, right? So now we look at the similarities. What do you think the similarities between the two? Can you list down the few similarities? All right. Could you please list down some of the similarities between the passive immunity and active immunity? Very good. All right. So both of these immunities, actually, it has the same purpose and function, which is to protect us from any diseases. So we do not want to get sick, basically. And the next thing is the two actually are triggered by the presence of antigens in the body. So it actually is triggered and start to function with the presence of the antigens. Okay, without that, we don't need to have the immunity. So these are the similarities. How about the differences? Can you list down the differences? Ayam, both involve lymphocytes, may not be, because passive immunity, we do not involve the productions of antibodies. Yes, you are right. Active injections, you are actually injecting with vaccines, but passive one is injecting with anti-serums. Yes. All right. 416, you are correct. One of the difference between the active immunity and passive immunity is active immunity lasts long period of time, okay, whereby passive immunity only for a short period of time. Okay, Zachary, you are right. Passive is a temporal immunity, whereby active is a long-lasting immunity. Yes. So this is some of the differences that we had between the active immunity and the passive immunity. So you may know that for active immunity, our body actually produces its own antibodies, whereby for passive immunity, the body gets the antibiotics or the anti-serum from the external sources. Okay. Number two, active immunity lasts for a long period of time, but passive immunity lasts for a short period of time. Okay. And the last one, active immunity acquired slowly, but for passive immunity, we acquired it immediately. So once you take in the anti-serum or the antibiotics, straight away you get the immunity. So it is immediate. But when you inject yourself with the vaccine or you get sick, your body is producing the antibody. It takes time. So the immunity for active immunity acquired, you need time to acquire it. So it acquires slower, right? So I'm actually showing you some of the differences. You may actually get more differences from the reference book and the textbook. You can check it out. All right. So that is how great our body is. So we should thank God for giving us such a wonderful body that we can recover from the sickness. Otherwise, we will die immediately when we are sick. Okay, but however, do you think that our body will be able, our body defense system, the immune system, will it be destroyed? Do you think our immune system will be destroyed? Yes, when we get older. Yes, actually it can be destroyed. Unfortunately, there is one virus which will actually attack our immune system. Okay, the virus is called HIV, which is the name for the virus, human immunodeficiency virus. And this virus will lead to AIDS. All right. It will destroy it. Okay. So when you get HIV, it is not curable. You cannot cure it, but we can treat. Okay. So the symptoms of the virus can be treated. So in the sense that if you get fever, you can treat you to recover from the fever. So if you cough, then we will actually treat the cough and you recover from the cough. So we treat it, but it cannot be cured. All right. So this HIV will actually attack the cells that helps our body to fight infection. So that means it actually attacking our lymphocyte or our immune system cells. So it actually destroying our immune system. And it will lead to AIDS, which is a symptoms that our immunity from, we lost our immunity from other antigens. We will get sick very easily. All right. So in short, the AIDS patient is easily infected by other diseases because our body immune system is destroyed. So up to date, we do not have any cure for the HIV, but we could treat the symptoms. Yeah? All right, so students, when it comes to this problem, like we cannot cure the symptoms, we cannot cure the infections, so what should we do? When we cannot cure the virus, what should we do? Any suggestions? To deal with this HIV, if we cannot cure it, what should we do about it? Yes, very good. We avoid it, we prevent from it. So like what we always say is that prevention is better than cure. So we actually stay away from it. We prevent from it. What are the suggestions that you would give to prevent from that? How do you prevent from HIV? Okay. To prevent from HIV, the best way is we must know how HIV is transmitted, and then we stay away from all the possible transmitting methods that the HIV could transmit to us. We stay away from it. Okay? So these are some of the ways that the HIV is transmitted. So the first is through the mother who has HIV to the baby. Okay, it could be during the times of pregnancy. The HIV virus go through the placenta and enters to the fetus. So the fetus born with HIV positive. Or during birth, okay, when the blood of the mother and the babies may have chances of mixing between two, then the HIV virus may have the chance of contaminating the blood of the baby, and the baby will get the HIV virus. Or through breastfeeding. So mothers who are positive with HIV normally are not encouraged to breastfeed their children. So because the virus could get through the breastfeeding, the breast milk, and to the babies. So we avoid it. All right. Secondly is sharing of contaminated needles. Yes. That one, you are correct. So prevent from sharing needles. How do you prevent from that? And when will you need to use the needles? So needles are used when we go for vaccination, when we go for injections, or even we go for blood transfusion. Or you go outside, some of us may have our ear piercing, you use the needles. Okay, we may go for tattoo. Some of you may go for tattoo. So the needle used for tattoos, we cannot share all those needles. Okay, because you do not know the person before you, whether they are having HIV virus or not. So if those needles are not sterile properly, okay, then it will be contaminated with the virus. If you use the needle after a person who is HIV positive, then chances of it, you will be infected by HIV. Okay. The next one will be blood transfusion. For blood transfusion, it is the contaminated blood which is in the blood bank collected from the HIV patient, and it transfer to the person who needs the blood. So those who are positive in HIV is not encouraged to do the blood donation. Okay, so please make sure you are away from that. All right, last but not least is unprotected sex. So this is where we have to be loyal to our spouse and do not have any unprotected sex so that we are actually safe from this HIV. Okay, we have to get ourselves away from it by knowing the method where the HIV is transmitted. All right, so now there is another hit topic that we are going to discuss, which is COVID-19. So do you think our immune system is able to defend ourselves from COVID-19? What do you think? Do you think our body can actually defend ourselves from COVID-19 virus? High chance. High chance means we can or we can't. Or we have high chance of infected by COVID-19. Can our body get immune from COVID-19? Or is our defense system strong enough to defend ourselves from COVID-19? Yeah, very good. Zawan, yes, we can. All right. We have to make sure that we are healthy. That's why our Ministry of Health actually advises to maintain the fitness of our body by doing exercises, eat healthily, okay, and most importantly, we prevent from exposing ourselves to the COVID-19. So if our body is healthy, we do exercise, we eat healthily, we sleep properly, we maintain the health of our body is strong, then we can actually have enough of antibodies to overcome from this virus. At the same time, we want to avoid ourselves from contact to the COVID-19. So that's why these are the steps that introduced by the MOH to actually help us to stay away from COVID-19. The first one is to wash. Always wash our hands because our hands actually touches a lot of things. Chances are we will have a lot of the virus on our hands. So we have to wash it before we touch other things or our face and so on, or we prepare food and so on. So that to reduce the spread of the virus to other places or other person. So number 2 is to wear. What are you going to wear? Yeah, your mask. We have to wear the mask okay, so that we will not spread the virus to other people. So when we cough, when we are sneezing, then the virus is trapped inside the mask. Not so much about other people transferring to you, but you are not spreading it out. Okay, but at the same time, of course, it's protecting yourself from getting the virus as well. And the third one is to warn. You warn ourselves or warn each other, reminding each other not to get close to each other, keep the physical distancing. Okay, always practice a good habits in sneezing or coughing. Always cover your mouth. Always disinfect the places that we go through. Okay, always stay at home. And if you have any symptoms, get medical consultation. All right. So let's recap what we have learned today. So today's lessons comes to the end and we just do some revision. Okay, first of all, we have already studied about the 4 types of immunity. Okay, which is natural, active immunity, natural, passive immunity, artificial active immunity, and artificial passive immunity. Always remember, active is because we produced our body actively producing the antibody. Passive is because our body do not produce the antibody. We passively receive the antibody. Okay? Natural is the sources of the antibody is from a natural way. It's not man-made. Artificial is the antibodies are actually made by other sources, or the what we call it the sickness is caused by man-made substances like vaccination. Okay, then we continue with the similarities and differences between the active immunity and passive immunity, and then we already studied also about HIV and AIDS. So we need to know the prevention methods to get HIV and also other infectious diseases like COVID-19. All right, with all this, we are going to end our lessons here. Thank you and goodbye.
Okay, thank you very much, Cikgu Kwan.
Thank you.
Okay, on behalf of PPD Bangsar, I'd like to sincerely express our appreciation to Cikgu Kwan for her time today. Okay, so adik-adik, besok jangan lupa kita ada lagi pada jam 10 pagi di waktu yang sama pada hari apa besok? Rabu. Apa? Tunggu janji kita. Okay, bye.
All right, bye.